Hello, everybody, and you are very welcome to this episode of Successful Perspectives. Successful Perspectives, of course, is when we deep dive into the topic of leadership with a key personality from our very selective and influential network, Boardroom by EMIR. On this occasion, I am delighted to be joined by partner and head of the Middle East for Pinsent Mason, the international law firm, and that is Katherine Workman. Katherine, it is great to see you. Thank you very much for joining us, and you are very welcome to this session of Successful Perspectives.
Oh, thank you, Trevor. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Well, listen, I have had the pleasure of getting to know you over the last couple of years. And one thing I've noticed, this conversation is around leadership. And you've always struck me as a person who genuinely is very likable and very empathetic. But that's the impression I get from you from the outside. What would your view be of you and your leadership style if you were to dissect that?
Oh, that's well, it's a great question, and quite, as I may say, very perceptive of you, because that is what I would like everyone to think is my leadership style, which is very people orientated, human leadership. As you know, I'm half Irish, and so I'd like to start with a bit of a story, because what you've just said is really interesting. So when I was at university, I went to Sandhurst, which is the military academy, to get my territorial army commission. And halfway through that course, my commanding officer called me in and to her office for my mid-course review for my appraisal. And she said to me, "Not really sure about you," which kind of slightly scared me at that point. I thought, I'm going home, I'm off the course. And she said, I'm undecided as to whether or not you've got leadership qualities, because people do things for you because they like you. And I'm not too sure that's a leadership quality. Now, I've thought about that all the time during my career. And I think maybe in the early 90s, that might have been a good observation or a good question. And whilst a lot has changed around me, that's still core to me, that human side of leadership. And I will admit that over the years, I probably have employed that tactic of getting people to like me, because then I don't really have to ask them to do anything. They will, in the hope that they will just instinctively do what needs to be done because that's the right thing to do. I've slightly evolved in relation to that. And I get to the same point by a different route. But for me, it is about being interested in our teams, by involving them in our business, by empowering them to play their part. And it's kind of all about them, really, caring about our people. We are a people business. We need our people. They are our greatest asset. And without them, we wouldn't be able to provide what we need to do to provide our clients with the service they need. So it is all about our people. During this year, I implemented a scheme where we looked at looking at the most personality types through Myers-Briggs. So we asked all of our people if they would fill out a questionnaire and look at their personality types. And what we've now done is we've asked all of their teams just to look at those personality types, look at what that means for them as a team, what they're like, how they respond to other people, and how they will actually respond when they're under pressure, because we are constantly under pressure. So for me, I suppose, right at the beginning, so it's a bit of a long answer to your question, is it's all about showing your humanity. And I've kind of learned that that's not a sign of weakness, that is actually a sign of strength as a leader.
Well, that's what I was going to say, right? It's very interesting evolution of you going to Sandhurst and that superior officer, whatever the title would be, calling you in and her saying, there's an interesting observation there that she was worried about that fact.
Mm-hmm.
And then you fast forward to today, and the hot button topic within leadership, of course, and particularly modern day leadership, is really around these. I don't know if you should even really call them softer skills, but it is a soft skill in terms of how you engage with another person. And on that point of modern day leadership, do you feel, if you think back to the 90s, now I understand that's when you were obviously studying, but still, if you think back to then and how leadership has evolved and what the modern day leader is all about, there's more of an emphasis on the culture of the team and also the impact on society. What's your take on that evolution?
Yeah, I think the evolution of that, and there has been an evolution for sure, but I think that evolution is going on now, still, because there are a lot of leaders that still believe in, and I'm not saying I don't believe in this, but in growth and profitability, and it's all about the bottom line, and it is. But actually, where the evolution is going is that being a byproduct of the leadership, rather than the leadership being that as its purpose. So, having mentioned the word purpose, we found this out. This is an example of this by looking at how we might become a purpose-led business. And we looked into this, and we had an absolutely amazing woman who helped us when we looked at our purpose statement. And she taught us, so this lady is Lisa McCallum from a company called Inspired Companies. And she was a VP at Nike when they determined their purpose statement, a very famous purpose statement. And she taught us that actually, your purpose cannot be to make money, because you will lose everybody in relation to that. If you're a human leadership, if you lead your people, if you bring your people in, the crowd, as she called them, the byproduct will be, so it is an acknowledged fact that purpose-led businesses are more profitable, but it's a byproduct of that rather than it being the root to what you're doing.
Do you feel the goalposts have moved then for leaders in terms of, in the past, perhaps it was more of certainly a focus on solely on the bottom line, on profitability, and now there's that impact. You have to be profitable, but also in terms of culture and society. How important is that?
Yeah, it's really important. And I think, as I say, I think the evolution is happening. I mean, we're certainly, we've made the leap, and it is a big leap, because you are thinking, oh, I can't flip that. It's too risky to flip. So I went to an event recently, and there was it was about the softer side of leadership, human leadership. And a woman made a statement towards the end of the event. She said, I just can't think like that at the moment. I wake up every morning and I worry if the work is being done, if the bills are being done, and where the money's coming from. And I can't think of leading humanly at the moment because there's just too much. And literally my heart was breaking when I heard that statement, because I thought, you've got it the wrong way round. Because if you led with the human leadership element, and you empowered, and you gave everybody a feeling of sense of ownership of your business, all of those things will happen, and you will be able to lead humanly, because your people will want to follow. They will want to do the right thing. They will own your business as if it's their own. So there's a lot more to do, and I feel incredibly lucky, and that we've made that flip. And when we made the flip, it was a huge moment for us. We had a partners conference, 450 partners all sitting in a room, and we voted live to decide whether or not we were going to do this. And our senior partner stood there with the votes going on behind him and the graphs going up and down. And, I think we were at 90 something% of the partnership said, yes, we're going to do this. And I was on our board at that time, and an incredibly moving moment, but it is a brave and bold one, I will say. But that's what we learned about ourselves.
It is definitely. And when you explain that to me, and I have that image of the 400 partners in the room, right? Lawyers have a reputation, of course, as being, very high achieving, high performing. It's not easy, right? You have a lot of driven, ambitious people in that room, which is a great thing. And they came to the conclusion that empathy should be at the center of the business, and employees being at the center of the business, and the mental health of these employees at the center of the business. Was that part of that journey, that focus on mental health, and obviously the broader team across the world?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when we went out with our purpose statement, which we have kept to ourselves, because it's personal to us, but actually the reason it's personal to us is because everybody else should see and feel the benefits of our purpose. But it turned out that I've got my little lanyard here today, but it's got all the words on it. But we're a very human business ourselves. Core to all 3,600 people is we always bring our humanity to work. We always find the spark. We're very Sherpa-like people. We like being out at the front. We like leading from the front, which is why it's not totally a surprise we took the bold step as opposed to others. We like to do the right thing, is huge. So at the same time as doing that, we embarked upon something called the Mindful Business Charter. So this came from a conversation in the UK with our senior partner at a client relationship meeting with Barclays, and said, look, we're really not treating, lawyers don't we love to get to a Thursday evening here, Friday night in the UK, send out a document and go, that's somebody else's weekend ruined, and ask for the meeting, ask for it back for the Sunday morning or a Monday morning. We're not very kind like that. We've got to stop this. And how do we employ mindful business practices? And quite a lot of it, we discovered, actually is about getting rid of the unnecessary. So there's a lot that's unnecessary in business. So I wouldn't need to do that, especially if the comments weren't needed till Wednesday of the following week. It would be unnecessary to make people work for the weekend when I didn't need it for 4 days. So we signed up this charter. We've got over 40 companies in the UK signed up, and we are currently trying to roll this out here in the Middle East. So if anybody is interested in talking to us about the Mindful Business Charter, because we need to be more mindful. I mean, the year 15 months we've just had have had a terrible toll on people's mental health and well-being. And you can do something about it. You can get rid of the unnecessary. If you got rid of the unnecessary, you would be massively there in relation to protecting your people from distress and the effects of mental health.
Well, I think this is something we can highlight at one of our boardroom sessions to get different stakeholders involved in this. So let's talk about this after the recording of this session, because I think that's a very worthwhile discussion to have. So I'm going to change lanes slightly, Katherine, and I'm going to ask you a question, but don't answer it, because I'm going to ask you a second question that I want you to answer that first. So if that's confusing, here we go. The question is, you're talking about, or we have discussed here in this conversation, the importance of societal impact, the importance of having a purpose and doing good, basically, as well. So in your experience, how can organizations empower females into those senior leadership positions? Now, here's the second question to that first one, and that is, does me asking you that question annoy you in any way? Does it feel that, why am I being asked this question? I'm always curious about this as a topic.
You know what? It doesn't annoy me. I mean, it might have done a while ago, but It doesn't annoy me because I'm of a generation that just has to suck that up, basically, because I need to create the path and create the way for a talented, big cadre of talented females to come through. And a number of years ago, I remember having a discussion in a group, and we were having the same conversation. And we were talking about quotas and targets. And I was like, totally dead against quotas. You know, I'd be devastated if I was in a role just to make a quota because I'm a woman. And somebody turned to me and said, yeah, but Katherine, if there aren't those, how are things going to change? And I kind of thought about it, and I thought, actually, they're right. I have a responsibility to make that happen. So it doesn't make me angry because it's my responsibility as well. So
it's companies' responsibility. So how do companies get this right? Because, you know, as you know, across the world, but particularly here in the Middle East as well, you see the lack of female representation at the top of organizations, at the very top of the organizations.
Yeah, I mean, there are a few things that could be done. I think what you should do is allow an organization to recognize, accept, and encourage diversity of thinking. So it's an acknowledged fact that women and men think differently when coming to an issue. Neither is necessarily right or wrong, but different. And different is good when you're looking for a solution for a problem. That diversity of thinking makes richer and better decision making. So organizations should encourage that diversity of thinking. I think for me, and certainly I've had the benefit of this, is allow women to be themselves. Ensure that there's a culture where being a woman is as much of an asset as being a man. And I remember in my early days as being a partner, I'd watched some of my fellow women feeling the need to act and dress like men so they could get on. And that really saddened me. It's totally unnecessary on so many fronts. And I think the other key thing for me, and I've been thinking about this a lot, is don't create environments where it's women fighting for women. This is about redressing the balance and about equal treatment. And men are a big part of redressing that balance. Every man has a mother, and most also have a sister, a daughter, a niece, an aunt, and they would not wish for her to be disadvantaged because they were female. Men are part of the solution. Otherwise, you've got that archetypal echo chamber and nothing's going to change. Another one is you've got to create a talent pipeline so that there are women in business ready and available to take on those leadership roles. But as I say, you know, people like me in the meantime have to be there to create the way to break the cycle, and I have a responsibility to that. But hopefully, in the meantime, we do a good job so that we're inspiring those women to want to do what we're doing.
And what advice would you give to those women, those high performing women that are, you know, in the earlier stages of their career?
I mean, if you can, and I've done this, be yourself, trust your judgment, trust that you can make a positive and meaningful impact on business. So short and sweet.
Wonderful. And then just finally, one last final question, not specifically speaking to women, but just, I guess, again, less experienced executives often take inspiration from some of the advice that we have on successful perspectives. So what do you feel is the best career advice that you've received? What has served you well when you think back over the years?
There's quite a lot, but in fact, actually, this wasn't. I do employ this in my career, and wasn't actually one specifically given to me in my career, but was from my. You'd be pleased about this. From my Irish grandfather. He had a saying, which is amazing. Which is, why stoop so low to pick up so little? And there have been many, many, many situations in my career where I could have gone completely bonkers, crazy mad with something. And then I take a step back and I think, okay, I'm not going to achieve anything by doing that. How do I now deal with the situation rather than reeling off into a fit of rage? So it's just about being calm and reflecting rather than reacting.
This is wonderful advice. It's the secret to a happy life, a tranquil mind, having the ability to have the introspective awareness to be able to stop before your emotions flow up like a storm and recognize and say, okay, maybe I'll take a second here. I think that would serve us all very well. Katherine, that's wonderful advice. Thank you so much for joining us today. Your insights were very rich and very valuable. I look forward to seeing you soon. And to our viewers, I'll see you on the next episode of Successful Perspectives. Thank you very much for joining us.